Obesity is a BMI of over 30. And I'll just remind you that we calculate BMI by taking somebody's weight or our own weight in kilograms, and we divide that by an individual's height squared. And of course, that would be in meters squared. And if we do that, we get a reading. And if that reading is greater than 30, then we can consider that person to have a categorization of obesity or being obese. Now, the next thing I want to say here, and it's a fairly serious point, so we want to be sort of sensitive around this, and that is that obesity is a body composition that is likely to cause health problems. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a serious health problem. It could be that someone simply gets slightly more sore knees when they walk long distances in a particular day because they're carrying a little bit more weight, for example. So that might be the kind of thing that we're talking about. Now, before we get into the health implications of obesity, I want to just sort of categorically state what the causes of obesity are. Now, I am looking at this in a purely sort of big picture, macro level. If we step back from the whole sort of notion of the individual differences in people and how people's psychology can differ very, very seriously, then we can simply say that there are two primary contributory factors. The first one is what we would call a sedentary lifestyle. And a sedentary lifestyle, or sedentary I should say, it means sitting and lying down too much. And lifestyle means effectively it's an everyday ongoing thing. So someone who is sitting down, lying down for a significant portion of their lives, and that is going on day after day after day. I'm actually not a bad example of that because I'm sat at a desk literally 8 or 10 hours every single weekday, and I also work sometimes the weekends. So it's relatively sedentary. I have to get to the gym. I have to make myself active because my daily structure is not active. But the other cause of obesity is what we might loosely refer to as a poor diet. Now, in essence, what we mean by that is a diet that is too high in calories, and it's also likely to be a diet that is high in fat. Now, it could be one or the other of those things, or both. But let's be clear, these are ultimately the causes of obesity. Now, taking this sedentary lifestyle point first, I want to just address something which you might find interesting, disturbing, and that is that 38.6% of the UK population is what we would consider to be underactive. And I'll just remind you, I think it might even be telling you for the first time, that what that means for an adult, when we consider an adult to be active, it means they are doing 5 times 30 minutes of activity per week. Okay, that's what we mean by an active person. So an individual that's underactive is doing less than this. And I should just stress that for children, this is a slightly different model. Now, you are probably a teenager or about to be a teenager. So for young people, we are talking about being active as 7 times 60 minutes per week. So we anticipate that children will be more active than adults, and basically anyone that would be underactive would be missing these sorts of levels of recommended daily activity. Now, where I'd like to go next with this, and it feels a bit somber and it feels a bit serious, but where I'd like to go next with this is this sort of notion. Obesity is likely, as we've said before, to cause health problems. So with that in mind, I want to address what are those health problems. What is a person likely to experience if they are experiencing obesity, and why, therefore, might they want to consider addressing that situation? And of course, it can be addressed, as we've looked at in other tutorials. So the first one, I've kind of mentioned this one already. The individual might experience excess strain on joints. Okay, so for example, knees, hips, ankles. If we're doing a lot of walking, for example, or we walk on one particular day, then what's going to happen is that's going to, obviously the additional weight which is pressing down through the legs is going to ultimately create more strain on those joints. Now, if that happens long term, this can be a foundation of what we call arthritis. Now, to be clear, arthritis is a condition where here's a bone here. On the end of a bone, let's imagine this is the end of a bone at the top here. Looks like some kind of very skinny volcano I've just drawn, but on the end of this bone, this end of this bone has cartilage. Now, if that cartilage develops gaps and tears in there, maybe because it's been pressed on too much with excess weight, we would consider that to be arthritis, and it can be really quite painful. So that's what we mean by that. Secondly, this person is likely to experience an increase in blood pressure. Now, you've probably already got a bit of an awareness of why that would happen. That's actually happening because, in essence, what we're finding is in the bloodstream, if we think about a very simple depiction of a blood vessel here, what's going to be happening here is that deposits are going to be building up in the walls of the arteries. So when the blood is passing through here, there is more pressure from these sort of build-ups of fat in the blood, and that increases blood pressure, which of course can be quite damaging. And I just want to repeat a point I've made in one of the tutorials. If these deposits are there long term, they can actually calcify or harden the walls of the arteries as well, which causes other problems. So the arteries become less elastic in their properties. So it's quite a serious implication, that one. Let's take things a little bit further. This person's also remember, this is over time. They're likely to have an increase, up arrow, risk of CHD. And I want to be clear, CHD, I'll write it down here, is coronary, meaning of the heart. I'll rephrase that. Coronary heart disease. Now, what I mean by coronary, these are the blood vessels, the actual arteries leading to the heart itself. So it's those blood vessels that can become blocked. So this can cause, for example, angina. Angina is chest pains, often precede a heart attack, and heart attack itself. The only other thing I would say there is we might also experience something like a stroke. Now, a stroke ultimately is not CHD because it's not coronary arteries, it's actually arteries leading to the brain. So I'll just throw stroke in there as another example. A person might also experience what we refer to as type 2 diabetes. Now, type 2 diabetes or lifestyle diabetes is when a person's pancreas becomes ineffective. It's not effective enough at producing insulin, which of course brings down our blood glucose level. So if that happens, this person needs to start eating fewer sugars, and this person needs to probably start taking injections or tablets to address that issue. Let's go a little bit further. I think I've got the same colour by mistake there. This person has also got an increased up arrow risk of sedentary lifestyle. So this is kind of a cyclical term. Consider that if someone is getting heavier, their tendency to be active gets less and less because that activity is less and less comfortable. That person might feel much less confident. Might even be a psychological process where that person doesn't want to do exercise and be seen doing exercise. So this can happen as well. So because we become sedentary, it's actually increasing the chances that we'll be sedentary in the future as well. A couple of last little points I want to make with you here. Finally, I want to say that we get an up arrow, an increased risk of mental illness. Or I'll say mental health issues. That's probably a better way of putting that. Mental illness is a stronger term. And what I mean by that is that this person might experience or have a higher tendency to experience depression. But as I sort of intimated before, they might also have a tendency, I didn't mean to write that, they might also have a tendency to experience social anxiety. People who are heavier might not like the way they look, might not feel good about themselves, and might not want to be seen by others in certain contexts. Think swimming lessons, for example. Think going to the pool, think going to a gym. They might not feel comfortable in that environment, and therefore they might experience sort of social anxiety around those things. So what we're saying here with compassion, fairness, and honesty is that obesity is a serious thing, okay? It's not something that you need to be terrified about if you find yourself or someone around you is heavier. That can be addressed, and we know how it can be addressed. We know it can be addressed through the energy balance. And I'll just remind you that the energy balance basically is that if we consume, so if we take energy in, and this is in a situation where you're looking to lose weight, if energy in is less than energy out, you effectively take on fewer calories than you burn, this person is going to lose weight. Now, I'm not encouraging anyone out there to lose weight. I'm just saying that if you want to, or if you feel you need to, it's in your control. Thanks.